In this video we are going to factor some quadratic polynomials of the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are constants and a, the coefficient of x squared, is not 1. When a is 1, we saw the case x squared plus bx plus c, which can be factored as a product of two binomials, x plus a and x plus b, where x's are the factors of the x squared term, and a and b are the factors of the constant c. In other words, the constant c is the product of a and b, and the coefficient of x is the sum of a and b. Now let's recall how we factor such a trinomial. So let's go and factor x squared minus 7x plus 10. So we want to write this trinomial as a product of two binomials. And we want to fill out now the binomials with their terms. So the first terms of the binomials are factors of x squared, which they are x times x. So x times x is x squared, and now we need two numbers that their product will be 10 and their sum will be negative 7. So if the product is positive, we said that those numbers have the same sign, but both will be negative. And now we are ready to check for those two numbers, okay? Sometimes we can find them, sometimes we cannot. Now, what are the factors of 10? The factors of 10 are 10 and 1, and also 5 and 2. But which of them will satisfy the sum 7? So 10 plus 1 is 11, is not 7. So these are not our numbers. So 5 and 2, yes. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 plus 2 is 7. Both negative. They will give us negative 7. So this means that since we found two numbers that satisfy the product and the sum, then they are our numbers and the trinomial is factorable. So the other job is just to place those numbers here and we are done. In other words, x squared minus 7x plus 10 is written as a product of two binomials, x minus 5 and x minus 2, and we did it. So this trinomial is factorable. Now let's see the second, x squared minus 5x minus 36. So still, since the coefficient of x squared is 1, the only choice is to look for the binomials. The first terms are x's, x times x is x squared, and the second will be numbers which will satisfy the product. Negative 36, which is a negative product, means that both signs will have different sign. One negative, one positive. And the largest will be negative. In order, when we subtract, to keep the rest in a negative sign. So what is 36? 36 is 36 times 1, but 36 minus 1 is not 5, so this doesn't work. 36 is 6 times 6, but here we have 0, so this doesn't work. 36 is 9 times 4, and this works. 9 minus 4 is 5. So, since we were able to find two numbers that will satisfy the constant and the coefficient of x, we say that this trinomial is factorable, and now the job is to place the numbers 9 here and 4 here. So we wrote x squared minus 5x minus 36 as a product of x minus 9 and x plus 4. Done. Now, if I want to factor 10x squared minus 13x minus 3, where the coefficient of x squared is not anymore 1, but it is 10, and now if I consider again the constancy a product of the numbers that I am looking for, and this is the sum, so I have two cases, because 10x squared is written as 10x times x and also as 5x times 2x. So the product is negative 3, means negative different sign. The largest will be negative. So what are the factors of 3? They are 3 and 1. So now we have two numbers, but we cannot check right away as we checked here. Negative 9 and positive 4 is negative 5. Now negative 3 and positive 1 is negative 2, is not negative 13. So the checking will be here. In other words, we have to place negative 3 and positive 1 here or here, and we have another case. So if I place negative 3 here and positive 1 to the second binomial, now I have to check. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x, and positive 10x times 1 is positive 10x, and together I have not at 13, but this is 7. 7x, which is not the middle term, so this doesn't work. So I have to replace them. I have to write here 1 and negative 3 here. So if I place here positive 1 and here negative 3, I have to check. Positive 1 times x is positive x, 1x, and 10 times negative 3 is negative 30x. So this is negative 27x, which is not the middle term. So this couple of numbers doesn't work here, and this is not our case, but it is 5x, 2x, maybe. Okay, because we have to check now, and maybe they will satisfy the middle term or not. Now if I place negative 3 here and positive 1 here, I will check. Negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x, and positive 5x times positive 1 is positive 5x, so the difference is negative 1x, which is not our middle term, so I have to replace now 1 here and 3 here. And let's check. So positive 1 here and negative 3 here. Let's check now. Positive 1 times 2x is 2x. 5x times negative 3 is negative 15x. So together they will give me negative 13x, which is the middle term. And now these are the right binomials. In other words, this is called trial and check method, but it takes a little time, but we did it. Since negative 3 and 1 satisfy the product negative 3, which is the constant of the trinomial, and their sum gave us the middle term, then we say that we factor 10x squared minus 13x minus 3 into two binomials, 5x plus 1 and 2x minus 3. Now, to avoid two cases or more cases, because now the coefficient of x squared is a number different than 1, sometimes this number is a prime number, which means it will give us one case. Sometimes this number is a composite number, and maybe will give us more than two cases, or okay. And if the constant here is a prime, gave us only one couple of numbers, but if the constant is a composite number, it will give us some couples of numbers. So to evitate this, to avoid those cases, we'll go now and try another method that we call AC method. And this method will help us straight away to find the two numbers that we need and to check immediately if they satisfy the middle term, as we did here. So here, as soon as we found those two numbers, we checked if they satisfy the middle term. And this is the job of this method. So again, I have to introduce you AC method, which serves us to factor a trinomial of form ax squared plus bx plus c when a, the coefficient of x squared, is not 1. Okay? Now, if we want to factor this trinomial, and if it is factorable, our job is to find those two numbers, because the first term, they are factors of the square term. Okay, but our job, the main goal, is to find two numbers. If they find the values of two numbers that will satisfy now not only the product is not C, the product of A and B is not anymore the constant, but it is the product of A and C. So A times C is also A times B, which means that sometimes the trinomial itself will give us those two numbers. Maybe they are A and C, because when we say that the product is AC is equal to AB, that means maybe they are sometimes the same numbers, or maybe the factors of AC, which means if they are not numbers, AC itself is not, there are not our numbers, that means after we multiply A and C, we will start to find factors A and B that will satisfy the coefficient of X. When I say that maybe A and C itself are our numbers, that means that they will satisfy the middle term. If they not, they are not our numbers, but their product factored in some factors will give us those numbers. Okay, and the sum of the numbers that we are looking for still is the coefficient of X. Now, let's go and factor 10x squared minus 13x minus 3. Now I will discuss two methods how to factor this. The first is just simply AC method, okay, because after we find those two numbers, we go straightly to fill out the binomials, and the other by grouping, and I'll explain this a little bit later. Now, the first job is to find the values of A and B. If we can find those two values, then the trinomial is factorable. And we'll discuss later which method to use. Now, the first job is to find what is A and what is B, our numbers that we are looking for. As we said, A and B, they are equal to A times C. Okay? If they are not, then we have to look for A and B by finding some factors or the product AC. So the product now is not anymore the constant, but it is 10 times negative 3, which is negative 30. So negative 30 will give us A and B. But A maybe is 10, maybe is 3. First I have to know what are the sign of the numbers. Since the product is negative, means that they will be different sign. One is negative, the other is positive. Okay? And this is telling me the largest will be positive. Negative, sorry. So A will be negative. Now, we said that maybe the numbers that we see in the trinomial are our numbers. So maybe it's 10 and 3, but they don't work. Negative 3 and positive, negative 10 and positive 3 is negative 7 is not negative 13, so they don't work. So we have two other numbers. 13 is 15 also, times 2. And this works. 15 minus 2 is 13. So our job is done. Since we found those two numbers that will satisfy the product AC and the coefficient of X, that means that this is factorable. Okay? Now we have those numbers in hand, so we have to choose which method. Now I'm going to use the first method, AC method. This is helpful for both methods, okay? The same job. And now I will factor 10x squared minus 13x minus 3 as a product of two binomials. As we see, no common factors here, so directly to write the binomials. Now, I want to fill out those numbers, to put these numbers into the binomials, okay? But I want to avoid cases of 10x squared. As we said, 10 is 10 times 1 is 5 times 2. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write 10x, 10x. I know that 10x times 10x is 100x squared. It's not 10x squared, but I will divide by 10. And doing this, 10 divided by 10 is 100, divided by 10 is 10 again. So, now I'm ready to put the numbers inside. And those numbers are negative 15 and positive 2. Since they are the same, I don't care when I write them. If I write negative 15 here and positive 2 here, okay, now my job is to divide by 10. And this 10 now will be distributed in both binomials. So in the first binomial, I can divide 10 and 15 by 5. And 10 and 2 by 2. So this 10 is distributed now, because 5 times 2 is 10. So by dividing by 10, now we have the right answer. 10 divided by 5 is 2x. 15 divided by 5 is 3. 10 divided by 2 is 5x. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and we are done. So 10x squared minus 13x minus 3 is factored as 2x minus 3 and 5x plus 1. Now, to check if my work is okay, so I'm done here. I consider my work perfect, so I declare that these are the binomials. But however, just for this problem, I am going to check if my work was okay. So, if I check, I will multiply those two. Negative 3 times 5x is negative 15x. And now 2x times 1 is 2x. And if I subtract, together they are negative 13x, which is the middle term. So my job was correct. In other words, after we find two numbers, just write here the coefficient of x twice, and then divide. That means simplify. Let's see this in another example. But before I go to another example, I am now discussing by grouping method, because I will use those two numbers to group the terms. But to group the terms, I need 4 terms, not three terms, okay? So these two numbers for grouping method, really their x's will serve me like this. So keeping this in mind, and I'm going to discuss the grouping method for the same trinomial. So 10x squared minus 13x minus 3. So A was negative 15, B was positive 2. So now for the grouping method, this will be x's. Okay, and those two will break down the negative 13x in order to have 4 terms. So I have 10x squared. Instead of negative 13x, I will write negative 15x plus 2x and negative 3. And now I have 4 terms to use the grouping. And you know how to factor a polynomials in 4 terms. What we do, we group the terms and then factor each group. Here the common factor is 5x. Open parentheses, here is left just 2x, 10 divided by 2, 5, 2. From 2x's 1 is outside. Here is left just 3. Check. 5x times 2x is 10x squared. 5x times 3 is negative 15. Now the second group doesn't have a common factor. And as you see, both groups have a common binomial, which is the common factor of the groups. So now I will write the common binomial, open parenthesis, and from the first group is left 5x, and from the second is left 1. So the trinomial, as you see, has exactly the same factors as in the previous case. Now let's go back what I did. Here I work so fast. I place the numbers, simplify, and I get the answer. And here I needed to work a little bit more, but still the work is beautiful and perfect. Now let me go and discuss another example. So I want to factor example 2. I want to factor 6x squared minus 17x plus 12. Okay, first I will use AC method. Okay, it doesn't matter which method I will use. First I need two numbers a and b to satisfy the product 6 times 12 AC and the middle term negative 17. So let me write again 6x squared minus 17x plus 12. So what I will write immediately, I will write 6x, and later I will divide by 6 to fix the problem, because 6 times 6 is 36, is not 6. I will simplify later by 6. Okay? Now I need, the numbers will be 6 times 12. So AC is 6 times 12, 72. And this means that I have two factors of 72. I have 6 and 12. Now what are the signs of the factor? The product is positive, so the numbers have the same sign and they are both negative. But 6 and 12 is 18, is not 17, so these are not my numbers. So still I have two negative numbers, and 72 is 9 times 8, and this works because 9 plus 8 is 17. So these are my numbers. And since I was able to find the two numbers to satisfy the product AC and the coefficient of x, the middle term, now I am ready to place those numbers there. So I will write negative 9 here, negative 8 here, doesn't matter. And now I will simplify by 6. Both binomials can be simplified here by 3 and here by 2, as you see. 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, and we are fixing the problem. So what is left? 6x divided by 3 is 2x. 9 minus divided by 3 is 3. 6 divided by 2 is 3x. Minus 8 divided by 2, 4. Done. So 6x squared minus 17x plus 2 plus 12 is written as a product of 2x minus 3 times 3x minus 4. So what we did here, after we found two numbers which are the factors of the product AC, we check if they satisfy the middle term, and if they do, that means that we can continue the work because the trinomial is factorable. Just place the numbers there and simplify, because 6 times 6 is not 6, it's 36, so we have to simplify. In other words, place the numbers, simplify, and you have the answer right away. Okay? Now I am going to use grouping method for another example. Example 3. Let me factor 4x squared, no, let's say 2x squared minus 27x plus 13. And this time I will use grouping method. That means I need 4 terms. Okay? Now to have 4 terms, Still, I need to check for the numbers, okay? Because numbers are our main goal. If two numbers exist that will satisfy the product 2 times 13 and the coefficient of x negative 27, then I can continue. If I cannot find two numbers that will satisfy what I said, this is unfactorable and I cannot use any method. I cannot factor the trinomial. But let me see, what is AC here? A times C is 2 times 13, which is positive 26. So I have my factors, I have my numbers. They are 2 and 13. So they are A and C itself. So what is the sign of the numbers? A positive product means the same sign, but they are both negative. So the numbers are 2 and 13. But is 2 and 13 27? No, it is 2 and 13 is 15. So they don't work. Now, what else are factors of 26? They are 26 and 1. And 26 plus 1 is 27, so these are our numbers. So sometimes they are A and C itself, but sometimes they are not. But the product AC will give us the right number, or sometimes these numbers don't exist. Now I have my numbers, and to use the grouping method, so I know that these are x's, so I have negative 26x and negative 1x. For what I need this? To break down the middle term. And I'm going now, let me rewrite again the trinomial, 2x squared minus 27x plus 13. Instead of 27, I will input this. Okay, let me rewrite this again, 2x squared minus 26x minus 1x. Together they are negative 27x, so the middle term gave us 2 terms in order to have 4 terms to use grouping. And now I have to group and to factor. So here the common factor is 2x. From the first term is left x. Here is left 26 divided by 2. 13, x is outside. And now I need this binomial from the second group, because I know this is factorable, okay? So I have here negative 1, positive 13, but I can make this positive 13 as negative of negative 13, okay? So now I will factor the common negative sign, which is the factor negative 1. I open parentheses, so negative 1 is outside, it is left x, and this negative sign, which is negative 1, is going outside, so I'm left with minus 13. Now the groups have the same binomial, and I'm ready to give the final answer. The common binomial is x minus 13, open, write what is left, 2x minus 1, close parenthesis, and we have the answer. So 2x squared minus 27x plus 13, it is written as a product of x minus 13 times 2x minus 1. That's it, I'm done. Now let me use those two numbers to use the other method. So again, example 3. I want to factor 2x squared minus 27x plus 13. I have the numbers. Those numbers will go to my binomials. I will write 2x just not to have a headache, and I am sure that later I will simplify by 2. I am very sure. Okay, so what are the numbers now? Negative 26, negative 1. And now let me check where I can simplify. Here I can divide by 2, and here not. So I am done now. 2 divided by 2 is 1x minus 13, 26 divided by 2, and now rewrite that, and I have the final answer. Easy and faster. So you can choose any method that you like. You can choose grouping, or you can choose this, depends on you. Here you have to remember, write just you see the coefficient of x twice, and then the binomials itself will tell you to simplify. Okay, because they are not allowed to have common factor, since the original trinomial doesn't have a common factor. So where you see a common factor, the binomials will tell you to simplify. Okay, you just write this, and since we know that everything is right, just write 2x and simplify where you everywhere you can. Now let's go. I'm going to continue with this because you know now how to factor by grouping, find two numbers. Okay, break the middle term into two terms, and that's it. You know this method, so I'm continuing in this that I call AC method, which is faster. So let me go now and work in example 4. I want to factor 5x squared plus 12x minus 9. So immediately I will write 5x, even though 5 times 5 is 25 is not 5, I will simplify later, okay? Now I need two numbers. What are that numbers? That numbers must satisfy the product 5 times negative 9, which is negative 45, okay? So this is the product. A negative product means different sign, one positive and one negative. So the largest will be positive. That means we have to subtract from the largest. So in this case, okay, I have two factors already. I have negative 9, positive 9, and negative 5. So 5 and 9 are two factors of 45 because I know that I multiplied them. The largest will be positive and the smallest negative, but 9 minus 5 is 4 is not 12, so this doesn't work. So again, the largest is positive, the smallest is negative, 15, 45 is 15 times 3. And 15 minus 3 is 12, so I found the numbers. If I want to use grouping method, this will be 15x, this will be negative 3x, and this will break the middle term to continue with grouping. I am not going to do this. I am placing those numbers everywhere I like because they are the same. So let me write negative 3 here and positive 15 here. The binomials is telling me where to simplify. No common factor here? Yes. Common factor here, simplify. Both can be divisible by 5 and you are done. So 5x minus 3. This is 5 divided by 5 is x plus 3. Okay, that's it. I'm done. Therefore, 5x squared plus 12x minus 9 is written as a product of two binomials, 5x minus 3 and x plus 3. Done. Now let's look at another example. Example 5. I want to factor 4x squared plus x plus 5. And if I can factor, I will factor 4x, 4x. And I'm waiting for two numbers, and later I will simplify. Okay, but let me see if I'm able to find the two numbers that I'm interested to put into my binomials. So those numbers will satisfy the product 4 times 5, 20. So 20 is positive, means the same sign, and the middle term tell us both are positive numbers. Okay, now we have two factors, 4 and 5. But 4 when 5 is 9 is not 1. So 20 is 10 times 2. but 10 plus 2 is 12, is not 1. 20 doesn't have any more, so what does it mean? I cannot find two numbers that will satisfy the product 20 and the coefficient of the middle term 1. So this is telling me this trinomial is not factorable. I cannot factor this trinomial. So I was waiting to put the numbers and to work, but I can't. So not always we can factor. So example 6. So I want to factor 6x squared minus 10x squared. No, this is 6 to the third minus 10x squared minus 16x. Okay? In this case, I have common factors. So 6, 10, and 16 are divisible by 2. So I'm going to factor it. So 2. What else? X is present everywhere. So x, the smallest exponent, is a common factor. Now I open parentheses, and what is left? 6 divided by 2, 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. And 10 divided by 2 is 5. From 2 x's, 1 is outside, 1 is left. 16 divided by 2 is 8. X is outside, close. Now, I factor this trinomial by factoring GCF. This is the greatest common factor. Now, I will check if I can factor the trinomial. Okay? For this, I need two numbers. So if I am able to find those two numbers, so I will continue my factoring. If I cannot find two numbers, like in this case, I will stop here and say, yes, I factor this, and that's it. But let me check if the trinomial is factorable. So let me work here. So I have 3x squared minus 5x minus 8. No common factor because we send them out. So if I can factor, I will write 3x, and now wait for the numbers to input them, and then I will simplify because 3 times 3 is 9, is not 3. I will simplify later. So what are the numbers? Those numbers will satisfy the product 24. So the product is 3 times negative 8, negative 44. So a negative product means one negative, one positive. The largest will be negative. Now I have already two factors, a and c itself. Let me place 8 here and 3 here. Now, yes, I have the factors in the trinomial. I don't need to look for others. 8 minus 3 is 5, and that's it. So, happy? I have to place them there, and now I don't care when I write them because I have 3x, so let me write negative 8 here and positive 3 here. So the binomials will telling me where to simplify. Here I do not have a common factor, here yes. I am simplifying both by 3 and I'm done. 3x minus 8. And now 3 divided by 3 is 1x plus 3 divided by 3, 1, and I am done. So these are the factors of the trinomials. And now let me put those in my answer and I am done. 3x minus 8 and x plus 1. Correct? So 6x to the third minus 10x squared minus 16x is written as a product of 2x, which is GCF, and two binomials, which are the factors of the trinomials, but together they are factors of the original trinomial. So in other words, 6x to the third minus 10x squared minus 16x is written as a product of 2x, 3x minus 8, and x plus 1. So thank you very much. This was the lesson today. So I introduced you in two methods in order to factor a trinomial when the coefficient of x squared is not 1. So today we factored this form. The coefficient of x squared is not 1. It is not a hard job. It is almost the same work as we work when we factor x squared plus bx plus c. But here the product was c, and in our case the product was a c. This was the only difference. Here the product is c, here is a times c. So thank you very much, and if you have questions, you are free to ask me on my email or my phone. I see you in the next video. Thank you again.